Hey, good morning, everybody. Members of the Transportation Review Committee. This meeting is now called to order at 10:01. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when you are speaking, and those participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please complete a request to speak form. MAG staff can assist with any questions you may have. If you've parked in the garage and are there in person, a validation stamp is available on the information table in the hallway. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see the staff for a ticket. Hearing assisted devices are also available for MAG staff, and we will now begin the meeting with a roll call of members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will go down the list alphabetically by member agency. Ted Wolf, Apache Junction. Audra Merrick, ADOT. Raj Thowdam, Avondale.
Present.
Thank you. Scott Zipprich, Buckeye. Hal Marin, Cave Creek.
Present.
Thank you. Jason Crampton, Chandler.
I'm here.
Thank you. Jorge Gastelum, El Mirage.
Present.
Thank you. Romer Truly, FHWA.
Present.
Thank you. Christopher Salas, Florence. David Janover, Fountain Hills.
Present.
Thank you. Jason Hafner, Gilbert.
Also present.
Thank you. Shahid Abbas, Glendale.
Present.
Chair Bridges, Goodyear.
Present, minus the flashing Christmas things like Mr. Boyles.
Noted. Amanda Nelson, Guadalupe.
Present.
Thank you. Keith Dranaski, Litchfield Park. Scott Nodes, Maricopa. Steve Wilcox, or Vice Chair Wilcox, McDot.
Present.
Thank you. RJ Zeter, Mesa. Shar Johnson, Paradise Valley. Brandy Kelso, City of Phoenix. Christopher Wanamaker, Pinal County Public Works.
Present.
Thank you. Mohammed Yusuf, Town of Queen Creek.
Present.
Thank you. Mark Melanchenko, Scottsdale.
Nathan Domi standing in for Mark, present.
Thank you. Eric Bowles, Surprise.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Thank you. Shelley Seiler, Tempe.
Present.
Thank you. Chris Hamilton, Tolleson.
Present.
Thank you. Trevor Collin, Valley Metro.
Here.
Thank you. Herschel Workman, Wickenburg. And Grant Anderson, Youngtown.
Here.
It's spooky.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
That was my favorite roll call yet, Carrie. All right, item number 2 is call to the audience. Our next item is call to the audience. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda, informational items, or items on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for call to the audience unless the chair requests an exception to this limit. Carrie, did we receive any requests? Is anybody there in person besides?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Patrick Stone. We do have one request to speak card, Mr. Andrew Marwick. Mr. Marwick.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Prop 479 has a lot of funding for some larger projects, but seems to neglect the existing system and the maintenance requirements over the next 25 years. There are many smaller projects that need funding on the existing network. For example, I've been driving on a regular basis over the 51 over the last several years, and the pavement has just been getting rougher and rougher, and this summer's attempts to patch it have simply made the situation worse, in my opinion, between the mini stack and roughly shea or cactus. Other things that need to be done, and obviously other freeways are probably in the same similar situation. For around Camelback and 16th Street, the buses stop back up traffic into that very busy and dangerous intersection. Street lighting. For various cities throughout the valley have very spotty street lighting. Some cities have better than others. Phoenix unfortunately leads the country in pedestrian fatalities. And that's something that really needs to be dealt with. The improved street lighting, especially at these dangerous intersections where pedestrians are getting injured and killed. I-10 through downtown. I mean, there's all kinds of issues with that. A lot of other cities have gone with similar situations to variable speed limits and warning signs. Like there's a sign, there's a stall in the tunnel, lowering the speed limit going into the tunnel. Where the 202 and 51 merge coming out of the mini stack going west on 10. Just this morning, it was backing up like crazy. 10 was flowing at 70 miles an hour. Everyone was backed up and stopped coming off the 202 and 51. There's just so much that needs to be done. A second carpool lane. The carpool lane through the tunnel area goes no faster during the rush hour than the regular lanes. A second carpool lane is needed in there. I'm not even going to talk about the I-17. That's really a fun issue. I mean, deficient highway interchanges, the mini stack. There's a lot of issues dealing with that. Loop 101 westbound going to the northbound 17. I mean, that's backing up all the time. I go at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. It backs up. It backs up almost every time I go through there. Once Taiwan Semiconductor really gets rolling, that's going to get a lot worse there. The existing system will need a lot of maintenance and upgrades over the next 25 years through 2050, and I think there needs to be a lot more focus on what needs to be done to maintain and keep the system safe and moving smoothly that we already have, and not focus on these big projects further out in the metro area.
Thank you, Mr. Marwick.
Thank you very much. Patrick, is there anybody else? Any other parts?
Thank you, Chair. No other requests to speak for the call to the audience.
Great, thank you. MAG also provides opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website. Any comments received 2 hours prior to the meeting have been shared with the committee members in advance of the meeting for consideration and will be included in the formal meeting minutes. Have we received any online written comments for the call to the audience?
Thank you, Chair. We have not received any online written comments for the call to the audience.
Great, thank you, Carrie. We can move on to agenda item number 3, MAG staff report. Patrick Stone, MAG Deputy Transportation Director for Programming, will be providing our MAG staff report. Patrick, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Bridges, members of the Transportation Review Committee. Pleasure to be here in person to present the staff report. Just kudos and appreciation for the folks that decided to come down. Our first in-person hybrid Transportation Review Committee since the pandemic. So a good start, and we'll hopefully look for more folks to be able to attendance in the future. A couple items to note. A quick funding update. I'd like to provide an update on HERF, Highway User Revenue Fund revenues. Those are the associated with the state gas tax VLT. For the month of October, HERF revenues were 6.3% higher than a year ago. And so far, year to date in fiscal year 2025, trending 0.1% above forecast. For the RARF revenues, which are the Regional Area Road Fund or the half-cent sales tax, those revenues for the month of September were 1.8% lower than the prior year, and currently year to date 4.1% lower than forecast. Also wanted to note, and I'm going to make this a standard item in my program manager's report, just kind of an update on upcoming future agenda items so that members are aware of what we're working on. In January for TRC, we will have the paving unpaved road applications coming through the committee process. We'll also have the first half status report for the arterial life cycle program. In the month of February, very exciting, the 2 new arterial competitive programs, of which your agencies have probably been assisting. We will be bringing those policies and procedures through the committee cycle, starting with the February Transportation Review Committee. And then in March, another arterial life cycle program item, we will have the fiscal year 2025 federal fund advancement requests. And with that, Chair Bridges, that concludes my report.
Great, thank you, Patrick. If any members have any questions, please contact Patrick after the meeting, and thank you. We'll move on to item number 4, which is informational items, and appears we do not have any, so we will move right on to number 5. Item 5 is approval of the consent agenda. Does any member of the committee have questions or request a presentation of any of the consent agenda items? Hearing none, prior to approval of the consent agenda, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any item on the consent agenda. Have we received any requests for comment?
Mr. Chair, we have not received any requests for comment.
Thank you. Moving forward, is there a motion to approve consent item 5A?
So moved. This is Jason, City of Chandler.
Thank you, Jason.
Seconded, Jason Hathner, Town of Gilbert.
Jason and Jason, thank you. We have a motion and a second. We will have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras, unmuting their audio. We need to see the faces of everybody to participate in the voice vote. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, staff will conduct a roll call vote. Staff will only call on those virtual participants who did not turn on their camera. So please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote so that staff can count the people's names whose cameras are not on. So can I go ahead and have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay. Members, please you leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating who were not able to turn on their camera?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Raj Thadam, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Chair, everyone has voted in the motion.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 6. Second project deferral request. So this item is on the agenda for information discussion and recommended approval and will be presented by Kay Bork, MAG Transportation Planning Project Manager, Susan Concluse, Senior Transportation Planner at the City of Scottsdale, and Nathan, I'm going to not say your last name right, I apologize, Transportation Planning Manager at City of Scottsdale.
Thank you, Chair, members of Transportation Review Committee. I'm happy to be here to introduce this next agenda item. As the Chair indicated, this item is on the agenda for action for recommendation of approval. The City of Scottsdale is requesting a deferral for their Goldwater pedestrian bicycle underpass project, and they're requesting to defer construction from fiscal year 2025 to fiscal year 2027. This project was originally funded through the MAG competitive program, Call for Projects. And since it has received federal funding, it is subject to the MAG federal funding programming guidelines. These guidelines allow a first-time deferral without justification. And however, the programming guidelines require any additional deferral to complete an appeals process through the committee, through the MAG committees presenting the request for the deferral and addressing these federal programming guidelines. City of Scottsdale is here today to provide a presentation to the committee, and they'll be addressing that deferral criteria. The city will be providing an explanation of the problem that caused the delay, and this issue needs to be beyond the control of the agency and other than financial. They will provide a demonstration of financial commitment to the project, a revised schedule that shows how they will address the original specific of concern or the reason for the delay, and also demonstrate that the previous cause of delay has been addressed or can be addressed with the revised schedule. The city provided a presentation to the Active Transportation Committee on November 19th, and the Active Transportation Committee did recommend approval of the deferral request. That concludes my presentations, and Susan Conclue is here today to present for the city.
Good morning. Next slide, please. This project is located on the north edge of Old Town Scottsdale, and it will build a pedestrian underpass under Goldwater Boulevard along the west side of Scottsdale Road between Rancho Vista Drive and Chaparral Road. The area links major activity centers in Old Town along with over 40,000 residents and 25,000 jobs. This area, as shown on the graphic on the right side, is characterized by single and multifamily residential, office, resort, medical, and retail uses. And it will provide safety, comfort, and convenience for people walking and biking to reach destinations within half mile, including the Portales Corporate Center, the Optima Camel View Village residences and businesses, Fashion Square Mall, several other destinations, as well as regional bus route 72 on Scottsdale Road. Next slide. The project is in an area that already has high pedestrian activity. It will include an underpass with public art and energy efficient lighting, a 10-foot wide sidewalk and access ramps, low water landscaping, wayfinding signage for people walking and biking, and this will become one of over 112 bicycle and pedestrian underpasses and overpasses within the city of Scottsdale. The one issue, the major issue that we were addressing is that Goldwater Boulevard Road bypass route was constructed in the 1990s, and that destroyed existing sidewalks and removed a portion of the walkable area along Scottsdale Road's western side. And at that time, that prioritized vehicles over pedestrians. And so the city and FHWA are concerned with pedestrian safety and see pedestrians as the most vulnerable road users. And this missing non-motorized connection exhibits high-risk characteristics due to the high volumes of the auto traffic and the high-speed arterials that are also blocked by hazardous terrain on the adjacent properties, making safe non-motorized travel impossible on this side of the road. There's a 435-foot gap in the connectivity on this side of Scottsdale Road at Goldwater Boulevard. And there is a sidewalk on the west side of Scottsdale Road that goes part way, but it ends mid-block. And so we looked at any kind of sidewalk connections or at grade crossings that might be possible, and they were not feasible due to the site distance and cross-section of Goldwater, which is a 3-lane arterial that exits at Scottsdale Road immediately south of Chaparral. I believe it is now a 2-lane arterial, but there's a lot of volume and speeds there. So the best solution that we found was to prevent conflicts with vehicles by separating people walking and biking with an underpass here. Next slide. The significance of this project is it was identified as a Tier 1 corridor in the MAG Active Transportation Plan. It is also listed as a neighborhood bikeway in the 2022 Scottsdale Transportation Action Plan, a key route in the Old Town Scottsdale Bicycle Master Plan that was funded by MAG. There are bike lanes on Chaparral Road, a path on Arizona Canal nearby with linkage to over 200 miles of seamless local and regional bikeways. There's a new pedestrian hybrid beacon across Highland on the south side of Optima to connect people to and from Fashion Square Mall that was recently completed, and also recent intersection safety improvements at Goldwater and Highland. And again, it connects to the Valley Metro Route 72. Next slide. The city originally applied for funding, bicycle pedestrian funding in 2019 for the fiscal year 2023-2024 call for projects, and was programmed for fiscal year 2023 construction. The city did kick the project off in December 2021. We held meetings with the 2 adjacent property owners beginning in the summer of 2022 that went to late 2023 to present 2 design concepts and discuss right-of-way and easements that would be needed at our meetings. We also attended the HOA meeting in April 2023 at Optima. At that time, we asked for the first deferral to move from fiscal year 2023 to 2025, and that was approved by MAG Regional Council in February 2023. That first project deferral request, we asked for that due to the design of the project being delayed during those right-of-way discussions with the adjacent property owners. We really wanted to make sure we were selecting the best alignment that would everyone would support and have buy-in. And the preferred alternative by the city and those adjacent property owners, we came to that in late 2023, is shown on the graphic to the left. It provides about a 40-foot long underpass as opposed to a 150-foot long underpass that would have stayed immediately adjacent to the road. That would have been a straight but very long crossing. That puts it at the high end of the crossings that are in Scottsdale. We don't have many that would be even more than 120 feet long where you're below grade. There is the concept in the center that's looking north toward Portales, where that underpass does start to swing, to the left, but it would be a straight crossing where people using the tunnel would be able to see the other side to have proper visibility. And then the concept is looking south from Portales parking lot on the right side of the slide. That's already at that grade level, so it will work well with the design that has been selected. Next slide. The second deferral request that we're making is to move the construction funding to fiscal year 2027 to allow the city time to complete all of the right-of-way tasks. And once the right-of-way clearance is obtained, the funds will be able to be obligated so we can bid the project for construction. Next slide. The project management staff is assigned through the completion of this project. All local match and contingency funding will be updated in the city's capital improvement program, and additional funding will be requested in the CIP for the right-of-way acquisition now that we have the accurate square foot estimates as well as the preferred alternative moving forward in design. Next slide. The new project schedule that we completed 15% design about a year ago. We did apply for a RAISE grant in February 2024. We got great feedback, but that was not a successful application. We initiated design with ADOT to receive our federal project number and ADOT number. And this new schedule, the project assessment was completed in August of this year. And we're actually about the 30% design phase currently and preparing to begin the environmental clearance process, move to the 60% design, and most importantly, at that next point, work through utility and right-of-way clearance, as well as the land right acquisition phase, so that we can begin construction in March 2028. Next slide. That brings us to the action requested or any discussion and questions.
Great, thank you for the detailed presentation. Do any of the members have any questions or comments on the request?
Mr. Chair, I have a quick question. Sorry, Susan, if I missed it. First of all, thanks for the presentation. Looks like a great project, so appreciate that. On the schedule slide, I was reading through, you applied for a RAISE grant. I missed it if you said you got that grant or not.
We were not successful. We were, I believe they notified everyone in the end of June 2024 whether they had a successful application or not. And then in September, we had our debrief meeting to receive feedback.
Okay, so it's just the CMAQ funding. You're not mixing different types of fundings. That's what I was asking. Okay.
Thank you. That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, not hearing any. Prior to voting, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment. I don't have any requests. Carrie, do we have any online, or is there anybody in the room?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have not received any requests to speak for the item or online written comments.
Okay, thank you. A motion to recommend approval of the second project deferral request to defer construction to fiscal year 27 for the City of Scottsdale Goldwater pedestrian and bicycle underpass project.
This is Dave Janover. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Dave.
RJ Zeter, second.
Thank you, RJ. We have a motion and a second on the floor. We will now have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on your keys and unmuting your audio. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call. Can I now have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, hearing none. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, could you please take a roll call of the members participating virtually who did not turn on camera?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amanda Nelson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, everyone has voted and the motion passes.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item 7, West Phoenix Light Rail Transit Extension Project, locally preferred alternatives. This item is on the agenda for recommended approval and will be presented by Hannah Quincy, MEG Transportation Planner 3, and Marty Zbake, Valley Metro Capital Planning Manager. And I apologize to anybody I get your name wrong.
Thank you and good morning, Chair Bridges and members of the Transportation Review Committee. I'm pleased to be here this afternoon to present the locally preferred alternative for the Valley Metro West Phoenix Light Rail Transit Extension Project for action. Next slide, please. This project is listed in MAG's Momentum 2050 Regional Transportation Plan and Regional Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Investment Plan, otherwise known as RSTIP, list of future high-capacity transit projects. The project will provide a high-capacity transit option to improve transit access and connectivity in West Phoenix, extending to the Maryville Village area and connecting residents to employment, activity centers, and regional destinations. The project will help address projected growth in activity centers and regional destinations, growth in population and employment, by incorporating efficient, high-capacity transit services that are consistent with local economic and community development. The first step in the process for high-capacity transit capital projects is the initiation of an alternatives analysis. As part of this process, a study is conducted to look at a range of reasonable multimodal alternatives as well as general alignment options. At the conclusion of the alternatives analysis, a locally preferred alternative, or LPA, is identified. The alternatives analysis study for this project was initiated by Valley Metro and the City of Phoenix in 2022. The alternatives analysis study area is bounded by Camelback Road on the north, McDowell Road on the south, 99th Avenue on the west, and Central Avenue on the east. And the entire study area is within the City of Phoenix limits. Next slide, please. The alternatives analysis study developed a two-tier multi-criteria method to identify the LPA. The Tier 1 evaluation identified and rated 14 alignment options based on ridership, travel patterns, routing, safety, capital cost, transit reliance, activity centers, community input, and transit connectivity and compatibility. The two alignment options, as shown on your screen, identified to advance into Tier 2 process include the green alternative. This option travels on Indian School Road between Central Avenue and 75th Avenue, along 75th Avenue between Indian School Road and Thomas Road, and then on Thomas Road between 79th Avenue and 91st Avenue. And then you'll see also the red alternative, and this option travels on Indian School Road from Central Avenue to 51st Avenue, on 51st Avenue between Indian School Road and Thomas Road, and then on Thomas Road between 51st Avenue and 91st Avenue. The Tier 2 screening process used technical analysis to compare modes and evaluate the two alternatives, scoring each based on its performance using 6 criteria, which include mobility improvements, access, potential impacts, land use and economic development, cost, and efficiency. The green alignment option with light rail as the mode emerged as the highest performing and recommended alternative. This alternative has the highest number of projected daily trips, the fastest travel time, the best access to resources like affordable housing units, bikeways, and activity centers, fewer potential impacts on existing infrastructure and buildings, as well as the highest safety score. Next slide, please. Following additional community outreach, the project team reevaluated the easternmost portion of the green alternative alignment of where it would connect to the existing light rail system. The final LPA, as shown on your screen, advances light rail as the alternative along Indian School with 2 connection options for the easternmost section of the alignment. There's a connection at Central Avenue and Indian School Road, as well as a connection at 19th Avenue and Camelback Road. And then the terminus is at Thomas Road and 91st Avenue. The project team anticipates additional evaluation to occur on these connection options at future stages of the project. For more information, you can access the West Phoenix High Capacity Transit Alternatives Analysis Report online at the Valley Metro website. Next slide, please. So I did want to touch a little bit more on public input. Valley Metro and the City of Phoenix conducted extensive public involvement for the project between March of 2023 and March of 2024. This feedback was used to advance the LPA alignment options during the 2 tiers of analysis. So these engagement activities included 10 in-person and 5 virtual public meetings for a total of 426 attendees from the public, as well as an online open comment period that was open for 140 days and that received over 900 public comment forms. Next slide, please. The preliminary cost estimate for this project is $900 million, as stated in the RSTIP, and it will be funded through the City of Phoenix sales tax, the Federal Transit Administration formula funding allocated to the region, as well as FTA capital investment grant funds. These capital costs are preliminary and they're updating. The updates are underway as part of implementation efforts of the RSTIP. The source of annual operating costs will be shared by the City of Phoenix and Farebox revenues. And I also wanted to note that no regional sales tax funds are going to be used for the construction or operation of this project. Next slide, please. On May 29th, 2024, the City of Phoenix Council approved the West Phoenix Light Rail Transit Extension LPA, and on June 20th, 2024, the Valley Metro Board of Directors approved the LPA. Future steps in the project include entry into preliminary engineering, and these activities include a refined right-of-way assessment, identification of station locations, potential to phase implementation, a development of operations planned, further funding cost estimates, development of the implementation timeline, and continued community outreach. Additionally, NEPA is slated to begin in 2035, and right now the tentative open to service year for the project is planned for 2041. Next slide, please. Locally preferred alternatives must be approved by MAG for required air quality conformity analysis and inclusion in Momentum 2050, MAG's regional transportation plan, which brings us to the action before you today. Chair Bridges and members of the committee, this concludes my presentation. The action requested is shown on the screen, which is recommend approval of the locally preferred alternative for the West Phoenix Light Rail Transit Extension Project and inclusion in Momentum 2050 MAG Regional Transportation Plan, contingent on a finding of air quality conformity. I thank you, and I'm available for any questions, as well as Marty Zeke and Trevor Collin from Valley Metro.
Great, thank you, Hannah. Appreciate that presentation. Do any members of the committee have any questions or comments on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Hannah, I don't know if this question will be for you or Phoenix or Marty, but I know that in the past, City of Phoenix was looking at BRT routes in parts of these areas and other areas throughout the city. Are there any plans still for bus rapid transit around this area or other parts of Phoenix?
Thank you, Chair Bridges, members of the committee. I can have, Marty Zeke or Trevor Collins speak to how BRT was considered in the alternatives analysis. I will also mention that as part of the RSIP, we do have 3 bus rapid transit routes identified in the investment plan. And then speaking to the route in Phoenix, that 35th Avenue Van Buren route would be actually intersecting with this project on the north-south alignment. But to kind of speak to what was evaluated, I will turn it over to Trevor or Marty.
Yeah, I'll let Marty start, but it was Jason, it's shown on some of the maps on the previous slides. So Phoenix is leading the 35th Avenue BRT project. Excuse me. The delivery of that project will be in advance of this one currently, as planned. So, but Marty, if you have more detailed questions, we can try to answer them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Trevor. Chair Bridges, members of the committee. Yes, everything that was said is exactly what it is. The City of Phoenix is working on a bus rapid transit corridor on 35th Avenue and Van Buren Street that will intersect with this project. As a part of the analysis that was done for this alternatives analysis, we did look at bus rapid transit as a mode. Light rail ended up being the mode that rose to the top. And one of the main aspects for that was the ridership potential that we saw for light rail on this corridor.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Great, thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments from the committee members? Hearing none. Prior to voting, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment. I do not have any requests for this item. Carrie, have we received any online written comments for this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair. We have received one from a Mr. Marwick.
Well, thank you. I hate to disagree with the presentation, but based on what the light rail has cost, like the South Central light rail, I don't think 900 million is very a reasonable number for a 14-mile system connecting at Central and Indian School. Another city somewhat similar in size and density to Phoenix has decided to go a completely different route. Minneapolis built 2 light rail lines, one from downtown Minneapolis to the airport and Mall of America, the other one between downtown Minneapolis and downtown St. Paul. Since then, Minneapolis has decided to go exclusively with bus rapid transit and currently has 5 bus rapid transit lines either under construction or proposed. The population density along Indian School just does not justify the cost and rigidity of fixed light rail. Prop 472, this is a nice advantage to bus rapid transit. There's no prohibition on using Prop 479 money for bus rapid transit. Minneapolis has a similar project, Line F. It's somewhat higher density than the Indian School area through the city of Minneapolis. And then beyond that, once you get into the suburbs, Fridley and Blaine, the population density is similar. I'll read from there. Metro Line F, bus rapid transit, Minneapolis, 13 miles, 32 stations, $89 million cost. They're projecting a ridership of 11,000 riders per day. That's a pretty high ridership. The project description, the Metropolitan Council proposes to construct a bus rapid transit project in a corridor beginning in downtown Minneapolis, extending through the northeast area of Minneapolis and through the suburban communities. The project is planned to operate in a semi-exclusive right-of-way for just under half of the route, including off-boarding fare collection, transit signal priority, queue jumping lanes, real-time travel information, shelters with heat and light, and 18 60-foot articulated buses. Service is planned to operate 7 days a week from 4 a.m. to 2 a.m., with buses running every 10 minutes. Social justice does not involve having the residents of this area waiting 20 years roughly. Bus rapid transit can go in much faster, maybe as fast as 5 years. Light rail is fixed. Once you put it in, you don't have too many options. If you decide you want to go past Grand Canyon University or connect at Camelback and 19th or Thomas and Central or whatever you might want to do, light rail is going to be almost impossible to change that. Bus rapid transit is much more flexible. It's much less expensive and can be done faster. So I think it would be a major mistake to put in light rail, whereas bus rapid transit can be done faster, cheaper, and more flexibility to change it in the future. Thank you.
Great, thank you, sir. Do we have any other comments, Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was our last request to speak, and we do not have any online written comments for this item.
Great, thank you. So moving forward, is there a motion to recommend approval of the locally preferred alternative for the West Phoenix Light Rail Transit Extension Project and inclusion in the Momentum 2050 MAG Regional Transportation Plan contingent on a finding of air quality conformity?
RJ Zeter, move to approve.
Thank you, RJ.
This is Trevor with Valley Metro. I second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor. We will have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on your cameras and unmuting their audio. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online, and those in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay, hearing none. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who were not able to turn on their camera?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Jason Hafner.
Thanks, Carrie. I'd like to abstain from the vote, please.
Thank you. And Mr. Ted Wolf, how do you vote?
I'd like to abstain from the vote.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, everybody has voted.
I did not vote.
Oh.
Anderson. And I abstain.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. We will record that.
Okay. So Carrie, does the motion pass then? Yes.
Mr. Chair, yes.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to item number 8, fiscal year 2025 traffic signal optimization program projects. This item is on the agenda for recommended approval, and we will be presented by Ryan Gish, RCN Program Manager. Ryan, can you please take it away?
Thank you, Chair Bridges and members of the TRC or Transportation Review Committee. Good morning. It's a pleasure for me to present this item to you. This item is on your agenda for action to approve the prioritized listing of fiscal year 2025 traffic signal optimization program projects and the funding scenario. Next slide, please. For 20 years now, MAG TSOP program has completed over 120 projects and involving over 1,200 intersections. These projects provide technical assistance to member agencies to review, run simulations, and apply timing plans across key corridors. This program aims at improving the flow of traffic, reducing congestion, enhancing safety, and increasing the efficiency of traffic signals. I'd like to point out the importance of this traffic signal optimization process as it plays a key part in reducing delays along your local arterials and improving the efficiency of traffic movement. With more efficient running signals, we get improved travel times, we get environmental benefits, and of course, the cost savings to the local drivers. And of course, there's the safety component. Properly timed signals can reduce accidents from those drivers trying to make the next red or green light. And it also can reduce, with properly timed signals, they can actually make the lights and move along in a constructive flow and reduce the speeds. Next slide, please. And here we have a typical schedule, or the schedule for this year. Call for projects is released just after start of the new fiscal year in July. In September, the ITS committee members present their projects. And the ITS committee is given a month to evaluate the projects. In November, they recommend approval for the list of the TSOP projects. And then it lands on your laps for the TRC approval. And then we work on these projects through the MAG policy committees. And then with the final steps of the consultant assignments and the kickoff in January. Next slide, please. This table shows a breakdown of the evaluation criteria used by the ITS committee members. The 9 categories, they're each weighted a little differently. Shown in the quantitative, higher value was given higher weight was given to the regional priority arterials and the peak period level of travel time reliability, meaning during peak hours, there's a high variability in the travel times, resulting in a lower level of reliability. On the qualitative side, more weight was given to the project effectiveness and the unique attributes of the project. Next slide, please. And now onto the list of the fiscal year 2025 proposed projects. Here we show the agency, the corridors, the ranking, the total number of intersections for that project, and of course the cost estimates. In this one, due to the total funding amount, Glendale's project would have only been partially funded. They declined their partial funding, and which allowed for Maricopa County to have their project totally funded. And next slide, please. And with that, Chair Bridges and members of the TRC, this concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Do any of the committee members have any questions or comments for Ryan? Okay. Hearing none. Prior to voting, there's an opportunity for members of the public to comment. Carrie, do we have any requests on this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair. We have not received any requests to speak or online written comments.
Excellent, thank you. So is there a motion to recommend approval of the prioritized listing of fiscal year 25 TSOP projects and recommended funding scenario?
So moved. It's in Crampton, City of Chandler. The minutes show this is Jason number 1.
Thank you, Jason number 1. Do we have a second?
This is Jason Hafner, Town of Gilbert. So moved.
All right, we got Jason all day. Thanks, guys. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. We will now have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online, with all in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who were not able to turn on their cameras?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Everyone had their cameras on and the motion passes.
Excellent, thank you. All right, moving on to item number 9. This is the fiscal year 2025-2030 Transportation Improvement Program, and this item is on the agenda for recommended approval and will be presented by Wendy Miller, MAG Transportation Program Manager. Wendy, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Bridges, members of the Transportation Review Committee. I'm pleased to be here today to present to you the fiscal year 2025 through, actually that should be 2030, Transportation Improvement Program. And I'll just cover a little overview of the TIP. Why do we do the TIP? Well, MAG is legally required by federal law to develop a TIP at least every 4 years. The TIP is a companion document to the Regional Transportation Plan, and it incorporates all federally funded projects as well as regionally significant projects regardless of the funding source. The TIP must be developed in cooperation with state and public transit providers, consistent with the Regional Transportation Plan, and must contain fiscally constrained projects. The projects must be in conformance with air quality standards and under the Clean Air Act. Plus, MAG is required to solicit feedback and comments for the TIP, and currently the draft TIP is published for public comment on the MAG website through tomorrow, December 13th. The TIP requires to be approved by MAG Regional Council, and it is forwarded to FTA and FHWA also for final approval. The new TIP covers a 6-year period. Now, typically, it's federally required to do a 4-year TIP. MAG typically does a 5-year TIP, and this TIP is 6 years in order to incorporate phase 1 of the Regional Strategic Infrastructure Investment Plan projects funded through Prop 479. The phase one projects are currently listed in the project in the outermost year of 2030. And the reason that we're doing that is because next year is policy discussions are planned in early 2025 to help frame how projects will be funded and move forward, advanced into the TIP in specific years. So examples of the funding sources that are included for TIP projects are FHWA, FTA formula funds, other competitive federal grant awards, congressionally directed spending projects, state funding such as Highway User Revenue Fund, HERF projects, and local or private funding. Capital and non-capital surface transportation projects are the primary focus of the TIP projects. It includes roadway and intersection improvements, transit investment, bicycle and pedestrian projects, safety, intelligent transportation, and human services projects. The TIP includes some detailed information on our activities where MAG is federally required to focus on performance-based planning, and that process is detailed in the TIP. It talks about planning and programming principles used in project selection, the setting of performance targets, and the current performance of the transportation system within the region. It includes a listing of major projects, and MAG changed that to be more inclusive to include projects that are $200 million or greater and are regionally significant. And also we talk about the financial plan, including revenue sources, programming, and statistical summary information. The total programmed amount all the projects added up, included in the TIP, total $11.6 billion. So this is a large amount of projects. When they're broken out by year and by funding type, 42% of the funding is federal, 38% is regional, and 20% is local or private. Breaking it out funding by mode, interesting that it's 75% of the projects are highway projects and 25% of those funded are transit. Looking forward, the next steps, as I mentioned earlier, public comment period ends on December 13th, tomorrow. It will then go through the MAG committee process and be scheduled for approval by MAG Regional Council on January 22nd. And from that point, it gets forwarded on to ADOT for inclusion in the statewide transportation improvement program, and then on to FTA and FHWA for final adoption of the TIP. So this item is on the agenda for action. Chair Bridges and members of the Transportation Review Committee, that concludes my presentation. As you can see on your screen, this item is for recommended approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Wendy, for the presentation. Do any of the committee members have any questions or comments for Wendy? All right, hearing none. Prior to voting, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment. Carrie, have we received any requests in the room or online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have received one request for this agenda item from Mr. Marwick.
Yes.
Great. Go ahead, sir.
Roughly a third of what I was reading, about $4 billion of this 11 or 12 billion over the next 6 years will be for the Highway 30 and Loop 303 project. I strongly oppose that. The South Mountain Freeway has done nothing. I-17 backs up going through the split. I-10 and 202 back up. All the arterials going westbound, Baseline, Southern, they still back up like they always have. As I see it, that's mostly induced traffic on the South Mountain Freeway. This is going to make the situation much worse. For South Mountain Freeway has been open 5 years. It's now getting pretty well congested. A lot of traffic, especially backing up going into I-10. The biggest concern I have is with the heat island. The last 3 of the 4 summers, I don't think I need to discuss anymore what everyone has gone through. in the last 5 years in terms of incredible heat. The heat island is just completely out of control, and developing the Southwest Valley may very well make the situation considerably worse than it is now. Spending the $4 billion, how much more is it going to cost to connect it from the Durango Curve to the South Mountain Freeway and from Loop of the Rio 3 out to State Highway? Are we looking at another $4 billion, $3 billion, whatever it is? This is eating up a huge percentage of the transportation funding from Prop 479 over the next 20 or 25 years. This increases the land values in the Southwest Valley, incentives for people to develop in the Southwest Valley and Goodyear, Southern Goodyear, Buckeye, even beyond that. More vehicle miles traveled, more air pollution, more pavement. It also decreases the land values closer in Phoenix and Glendale and Mesa and Chandler and Scottsdale, which decreases the incentive to reuse land, to take an old strip shopping center and put in apartments, like Tempe has been doing an excellent job of doing. That should be going on through more of the valley, of increasing the density, putting in green roofs, all these other things. That should be the focus of looking at what is going to stop this heat island effect that is going to make this city unlivable in a few years if this does not reverse. So I think that this is something that this is the thing I'm most strongly opposed to. That really has a lot of very, very negative effects. Light rail out Indian School, it may not be the most efficient, but it's not going to cause any damage. I think this Highway 3303 into the Southwest Valley could create some very serious problems. Thank you.
Great, thank you for the comments. Do we have any other comments, Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No other requests to speak or online written comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving forward, is there a motion to recommend approval of the draft FY 2025 through 2030 MAG transportation improvement programs and changes contingent on the funding on a funding of conformity? If I could speak, that'd be great. Do we have a motion or a second?
Chair, so moved. Eric Boyle, City of Surprise.
Thank you, Eric. Do I have a second?
Second, Anderson, Youngtown.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion and a second on the floor. We will now have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online, with all those in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who were not able to turn on their camera?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Everyone had their cameras on and the motion passes.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, we're moving on to agenda item number 10, which is the Federal Highway Administration funding, federal fiscal year 2025 closeout. And this item is on the agenda for recommended approval and will be presented by Patrick Stone, Deputy Transportation Director for Programming. Patrick, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Bridges, members of Transportation Review Committee. A pleasure to be here today to present this item. As always, when I do my presentations, I kind of like to anchor my presentations back to the policy document. In this case, this is the Federal Fund Programming Guidelines and Procedures. Last approved in 2015, we'll actually be doing an update to those guidelines in the spring next year, so looking forward to that. And what these guidelines do, they really provide guidance related to closeout funding and how we administer the process. Specifically, Section 500.4 in the guidelines identifies the role of Transportation Review Committee in this process, and that really is those priorities and looking at the redistribution of the federal funding available to the region each year. On the screen here, you see the life cycle programs. These are the ones outside of the arterial, transit, and freeway life cycle programs. These are really where we draw those projects that compete for closeout funding. I will note the only program on the screen not eligible for funding is the roadway safety program. That because we use highway user revenue fund or non-federal funding to administer those projects, so they're not eligible for closeout funding. Otherwise, all of those identified on the screen are eligible. So closeout requests, talk about the process. Memo went out to member agencies on October 14th, identifying that we had a closeout cycle underway with requests due back to MAG on November 14, 2024. Funding available. The original memo that went out in October identified a value of $35 million. Want to note, subsequent to that, we did get some deferrals from member agencies identifying fiscal year 25 projects that would not go. One of those, thinking about the city of Scottsdale and their second deferral for Goldwater. Net effect, we actually had significantly more funding available for closeout, just over $50 million for this fiscal year. So what's eligible for closeout? What kind of projects do we allow to be funded? The biggest one in the order of priority, advancing future construction. So for member agencies that perhaps have a project in fiscal year 26 and or 27, but have gotten that project ready to deliver, they can submit those projects for request. In addition, and you'll see on the next slide, current and prior year increases. So essentially helping member agencies deal with cost overruns, unsuccessful bidding. We've seen in the last few years the cost of inflation, so a very large interest in this item. Current prior year design. This is one not often used, but for member agencies that were awarded a project through the competitive process, they could come in to fund either design and or right-of-way through the closeout process in the current fiscal year. And then finally, we do allow for those projects for street sweepers and our design assistance program that were done, that were part of the call for projects in fiscal year 2025. Those that were not selected for funding can submit those projects again to be considered for closeout. So here on the screen, you can actually see the requests, in total 26 requests, just over $43 million. No surprise, honestly, given where the market is. All of the requests essentially were in construction increase and funding the balance of the fiscal year 25 sweepers and design assistance program. So financials, this is what I love. Not others are as enamored of this, but this really shows how we come up with the amounts that are available for closeout. What we do, we start with the federal funding that's made available to the region, just over $158 million. We then back out all of the projects in the TIP for the current fiscal year that are using those federal funds. And what we're left with is how much funding is available for closeout. We do a simple, quick math calculation, subtract out the funding scenario. And as long as we have a positive balance, we're in shape to recommend approving all of the closeout requests received by by MAG. Couple things to note, as I noted before, the program totals do include those additional deferrals, hence why the closeout amount was a little larger. Oops, apologies. There it goes. And also to note, because we do have a balance, there is potential to maybe look at a second closeout request. We have done that in prior years. Stay tuned on that. We'll have to look at how the financials shake out in the next couple of months. And with that, Chair Bridges, members of the Transportation Review Committee, that concludes my agenda item. Certainly available for any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Jason City Chandler. Patrick,
go ahead, Jason, number one.
That's right. Thank you. So if we don't do a second closeout round for that 7.395 million, are we able to roll that into future years, or do we lose that money?
Thank you, Chair Bridges, members of the Transportation Review Committee, Mr. Crampton. Actually, a very good point. And we have in prior years, if we get deferrals or get notified late in the year that something might not go, our partners at ADOT have been very gracious and worked with us. We sometimes can flex that funding into the freeway program and then get funding back in a subsequent year so that we're not losing the funding to the program. But thank you. Great question.
Great.
Great. Thank you for the question, Jason. Do we have any other questions or comments from any of the committee members? Okay, not hearing any. Prior to voting, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment. Carrie, do we have any in-person or online requests?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have not received any requests to speak or online written comments.
Great, thank you. As such, is there a motion to recommend approval of the proposed closeout funding scenario and the associated documents?
So moved, Chair. This is Shahid Lander.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
Second, Muhammad Yusuf, Town of Queen Creek.
Thank you, Mohammed. We have a motion and a second on the table. We will now have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. Can I go ahead and get a voice vote of those in the room, those online, with all in favor saying aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed say nay? All right. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who were not able to turn on their camera?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Everyone had their camera on and the motion passes.
Excellent, thank you. All right, we're keeping on rolling. Item number 11, update on Proposition 479 Arterial Life Cycle Program Development Activities. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Carrie Kessler, Transportation Planner 1. Carrie, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and hello, members of TRC. Today, I will be providing an update on the Proposition 479 Arterial Life Cycle Program Policies and Procedures. First, I'll go ahead and give an overview of the program. So the Arterial Life Cycle Program, also known as the ALCP, is currently a program that is outlined in the Regional Transportation Plan that is supported by Prop 400. Overall, this program has really been a success over the past 20 years. The policies were originally developed in 2004 and have been updated 10 times for various topics, with the latest update taking place this past June with the procedures associated with the end of the tax under Prop 400. Any updates made to this document is generated by the ALCP working group and presented through the MAG committee process. So this document was used as the base for the Prop 479 ALCP policies and procedures. As stated before, the Prop 400 ALCP was and continues to be very successful, so there's no need to reinvent the wheel here. We simply used this document and changed and updated aspects to account for changes in the program under Prop 479 or based on lessons learned from the previous program. Many of the foundational elements developed under the Prop 400 remain consistent with the framework for Prop 479. Among these consistencies is the identification of lead member agencies through the RSTIP, or the Regional Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Investment Plan. The agencies with an asterisk next to their name indicate those that are new to the ALCP program under Prop 479, and as you can see, the number of lead agencies has about doubled. There will be an effort to educate all lead agencies on the basics of how the ALCP works, essentially a Prop 479 101, if you will, to make sure that all agencies are operating on the same information as we go into the new program. Another aspect that will remain consistent as outlined in the RSIP and state statute is that the lead agencies will be the ones implementing the projects and then will be receiving reimbursements through MAG. So there are several projects that are in more than one jurisdiction outlined in the RSTIP. There are many ways that these sort of projects can be handled. The first option being the project can be implemented as one project with a single lead agency as agreed upon by the agencies listed in the project agreement. This is explicitly documented in writing through a Memorandum of Understanding, or a MOU, or an intergovernmental agreement, or an IGA. The second option is if the project can be segmented and implemented as separate projects by each agency. These options will remain standard in the Prop 479 ALCP. Similarly, the annual program update process remains unchanged, with continued agency input ensuring the program's responsiveness to regional needs. We're currently in the middle of this process and the development of the draft fiscal year 26 ALCP. The agencies receive workbooks which outlines each of their projects with their schedule and budget. They provide comments back to MAG staff with updates to those if there are any, and we use that information to develop the draft ALCP. Any project changes are reviewed by are brought through the committee process, and once all of that has been reviewed by MAG staff and the agency staff, the final draft is brought through the policy process in June of each year. The foundational documents supporting the program remain largely unchanged as well, with some adjustments for clarity and alignment with the new program. The first being project narratives, formerly known as project overviews. These are completed and submitted by the lead agencies and detail the project scope and ensure alignment with the RSIP's intent. So The name has just been changed for clarity reasons and to make sure it doesn't get mixed up between the agencies if you have projects in both Prop 400 and Prop 479. The project agreements is the legal document between MAG and the lead agency and outlines the exact roles and responsibilities of the participating agencies. And finally, the project reimbursement requests also retain their role in establishing terms of financial reimbursements based on the program allocation and the fiscal year. These documents are submitted to MAG for review and then forwarded to ADOT, where the funding is actually dispersed. ADOT acts as the bank for this program. The funding model also remains the same, maintaining the 70-30 split between regional funds and the local match contributions. The approach of handling project savings is also unchanged. The savings can only be reallocated once the original project has been completed and all associated requirements have been met. The current process for the regional funding closeout begins in the April Transportation Review Committee and continues through the MAG committee process in May, 1 month before the annual update of the ALCP. This will also remain consistent in Prop 479 ALCP. So next we'll move on to some of the aspects that are unique to Prop 479 ALCP. So this will continue to be the financial management tool of the arterial street component for the RSTIP. It contains a list of 91 defined projects that is supported by Prop 479. And the program will be guided by policies and procedures for the management and oversight of this program, which is exactly what we're here today to talk about. Here you can see an overview of the arterial projects included in the RSTIP from phase 1 through phase 4 over the 20-year span of the program. I'm sure many of you have seen this map before. Arguably, the biggest difference between the Prop 400 and Prop 479 ALCP are the funding sources. So under the current ALCP under Prop 400, there are 2 funding sources. The first being the dedicated half-cent sales tax, and the second being Federal Highway Administration formula funds that are allocated to the MAG region. The Prop 479 ALCP is funded entirely by regional funds or the half-cent sales tax. This will ultimately make life a lot easier for all of you as well as MAG staff. Here are the 5 key objectives that were discussed and agreed upon by the ALCP working group that will really guide everything going forward. The key tenets include effective and efficient implementation of the RSTIP and ensuring that projects are implemented in a manner consistent with that document, including updates and any amendments. Next being fiscal integrity and ensuring that the regional funded arterial component of the RSTIP is supported. Next is accountability and providing the means to track and ensure effective and efficient project implementation. Next is transparency, providing our member agencies, members of the public, elected officials, and other stakeholders with ready access of information of the program and each project. And finally is compliance. This is to ensure that we comply with all applicable federal, state, and local requirements in the implementation of each project. So now we'll discuss some of the other elements that require a bit more consideration and development with the input of the committee. As mentioned, a working group of member agency staff, many of you are on this committee, have been commenced since June 2024 to discuss and sort of dissect the Prop 400 ALCP policies and initiate a draft of the policies. However, as mentioned, several policy items still remain. One of the new elements included in the policies is for member agencies to post signage at their project site acknowledging the role of regional funding and how that plays into the projects. This requirement will be noted in the updated project agreement template. As you can see here, this is an example from a City of Phoenix project for their project on Happy Valley, where they highlighted the role of Prop 400 funding in their project. The first consideration is that of the project change tool. In the current policies for Prop 400, it outlines the specific criteria required by member agencies to outline and be used by MAG committees to evaluate proposed project changes. So this includes quantitative and qualitative criteria as outlined here. Many of you are very familiar with these items in the associated Excel sheet. So upon discussion with the working group, the main takeaway in question was whether the current system really does what we want it to do, if it allows agencies to accurately and adequately explain why the new project is better fit for the program. And so the general consensus was that transparency is really key since the projects within the RSTIP were unanimously approved by Regional Council and then passed by the voters. So it's important that the tool reflects that the need has changed for the agency and that the data supports that change. So as a result, MAG staff recommends utilizing the criteria originally used to evaluate the projects to be put into the RSTIP as the quantitative data, and then using the qualitative criteria developed by the working group, which is shown here. You can see the evaluative criteria. As stated, the quantitative data is what to get the projects into the RSTIP when it was first developed. And the qualitative data is modeled after the criteria that was developed for the arterial competitive programs, which really focuses on whether the new projects meet the stated goals of the ALCP, if it allows, it also allows the agencies to highlight unique attributes and qualities and circumstances of the new project that can't quite be captured in the quantitative data. And finally, any safety considerations for the new projects, as this is paramount to the program. So the next consideration is the matter of inflation. Language outlining the process for inflating project reimbursements annually was originally outlined in the Prop 400 ALCP policies and procedures. The annual update of the ALCP requires that the remaining budget for ALCP projects would be carried forward to the next year and then adjusted to account for the past year's inflation based on the All Items United States Consumer Price Index, or CPI. This language was removed from the policies in response to the Great Recession and the revenue implications caused by economic downturn. So the consensus of the working group was to add this language into the program for Prop 479. So MAG staff recommends including inflation language to the policies that outlines the process of inflating the project costs for each year, and that MAG will update and release inflation rate information. Next, I want to highlight some key dates that are outlined in the policies, specifically to do with any or when reimbursable expenditures can be incurred. The policies help guide how and when agencies can seek reimbursement for eligible project expenditures. In addition, the dates also allow member agencies to use previously incurred costs to help fulfill the agency's match requirements. So the proposed dates align with the passage of the RSTIP by voters. As a result, we recommend the following key dates for project development reimbursements. The first being construction and related activities must have begun after November 5th of 2024 to be reimbursable. Project development costs incurred on or after July 1st of 2024 are eligible for reimbursement. And then project development costs incurred between July 1, 2021 and June 30th of 2024 can be used toward the local match requirement. So here's a look ahead on the steps to come. First is the development of the policies and procedures for Prop 479 ALCP. This is where we currently are, and we'll continue to work through this development process before we take the final document through the policy committees later this, next year. Next are the revenue estimates, which will be updated, as well as the regional funding amounts, considering the impacts of inflation. And then the final step is identifying the specific sequencing of projects within each phase. This will determine whether a project will be reimbursed in fiscal year 2026 versus fiscal year 2030, both of which are in phase one of the program, but are obviously very different in project implementation. So this is our timeline of our next steps for this process. We're currently taking this item through for information through this committee, and then we'll be taken through Transportation Policy Committee and Management Committee to get their input as well. When the item is sent through the policy committees, it will also have the draft policy document accompanying it to get the committee's thoughts on the full document. After that, the draft document will be sent to the ALCP working group for their review and feedback. And finally, the final policy update will be brought through the policy committees for recommended approval of the Prop 479 Arterial Life Cycle Program policies and procedures. Mr. Chair, members of TRC, this item is on the agenda for information and discussion, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Carrie. Really good presentation, I appreciate it. Do any members of the committee have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, Jason, number one again. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hey, great presentation. I appreciate all the work that MAG staff has done on this and all the other working groups. You guys have done phenomenal work. So a question, if you're taking this forward for approval in March, I think you said, and you're in the meantime working on revenue forecasts, updating regional funding amount, project costs. So are we to assume that when this gets approved, we will have updated project costs and kind of like a fully sequenced program with actual real dollar amounts that have been updated since 2020?
Thank you, Chair Bridges, members of the Transportation Review Committee. I'll take this one for Carrie. Mr. Crampton, you've nailed it correctly. So in January, we will be taking the revenue update through the policy committee. So we'll be providing what we see as the updated revenues. We'll then overlay those into the ALCP. One thing, Carrie, we haven't noted yet, but we will be building a draft ALCP that reflects the RSTIP as approved by voters. So we're going to like benchmark baseline all of those costs. But yeah, so the intent is we also have a consultant that we've just got under contract for member agencies that were part of that. Back in 2021, we went out and did the cost updates for your arterial projects. We've requested that the consultant come back and reflect and update those costs into 2024 dollars, understanding the impacts of inflation. So yeah, the intent is before we actually finalize anything, we'll have everything grown into 2024.
Thank you. And then one more question. So, again, thank you for this presentation. Do you plan also to take forward like the competitive arterial program, the TLCP, and all those other working groups that we've been participating on to this committee so that this committee and maybe the other technical committees get a chance to weigh in and discuss?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bridges, members of the Transportation Review Committee, Jason, number one. Yes, so that and kind of a preview of coming attractions for TRC, we will be bringing forward the policy document associated with the arterial competitive programs. We'll be bringing through the policy documented with Prop 479 ALCP, the Prop 479 Freeway Lifecycle Program, or FLCP, and then also updates to the Transit Lifecycle Program. That's probably a longer lead item. But yeah, 2025 will be a very busy year for MAG staff, member agencies, and the committees.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jason, for those questions. Do we have any other questions from any of the committee members? Okay, hearing none. This is just for information and discussion. So thank you again, Carrie, for that good presentation. Heading on to agenda item number 12 is a request for future agenda items. Do we have any requests from the membership for an item on a future agenda? Hearing none. Next agenda item is comments from the committee. Are there any comments or announcements for the good of the order?
Mr. Chair, this is Jason Hafner from the town of Gilbert.
Yes, sir.
I would like to propose that Mr. Boyles from the City of Surprise wear that outfit for every TRC committee meeting moving forward. I don't know if this is something that requires an action by this committee or if it's just something that we can implement.
I think that might be something that we can just implement at chair's discretion. Does that sound right? Any other comments or questions or announcements? All right, hearing none, the next meeting of this meeting is adjourned. The next meeting of the Transportation Review Committee will be on Thursday, January 23rd at 10 a.m. And with no further business, today's meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Eric, for being so bright.
Happy holidays to all.